he felt guilty that he was just loved too much, right? That continued into his marriage to his wife, and then later obviously his wife will also feel guilty, like, oh my goodness, am I maybe lacking somewhere? Because why is this person loving me so much? Maybe I'm the one who's not doing my job well as a wife. So all those things brought so much. Hi everyone, welcome back to Empowering Immigrants. Can you see my joy? I'm always happy when I'm back here. Welcome back to Empowering Immigrants. It's a community where we have ongoing conversation on personal growth, personal development, and share educational and informative information. It's a new week, it's a new Wednesday, and we get to continue on our series, #Reflection Wednesdays, right? So on today's series, in this video, we're gonna talk about childhood trauma. Yeah, who gets to experience childhood trauma? What is childhood trauma? Why do people experience childhood trauma? How can we overcome childhood trauma? How can we heal, or how can we just move forward? And why is it important for us to even take part in having that awareness and self-discovery of our childhood trauma? We're talking all things childhood trauma. Today's question: what is your childhood trauma? I am so glad that we get to dive into this topic. I strongly believe that we all get to experience childhood trauma. It can differ from person to person, but we all get to experience it, whether we want or not, whether our parents wanted it or not. It is simply inevitable. I didn't even think that I experienced childhood trauma myself. I totally excused myself from the equation because I didn't have an horrific childhood experience or event in my life, like being raped, for instance. So I didn't think that I had childhood trauma until recently, that childhood trauma has been such a vastly spoken topic, right? That I got to dive into my past and actually get to figure out, get to discover myself, get to discover my weaknesses, my struggles, the root of it, which was really important. And disclaimer before we move on, I'm not an expert, I'm not a doctor, a psychologist, therapist, or whatever. This is just my own life experience that I'm sharing with you all. And I've also learned and gained a lot of knowledge on the topic from reading a lot of books. For example, Baked in Pain by Amanda Ntapusa was a life changer, so relatable, and also listening to podcasts on other people's childhood personal stories. Okay, so what is childhood trauma, Lucia? All right, childhood trauma can occur when a child experiences overwhelming and threatening events in their childhood, right? That then causes a wound. So childhood trauma, it's like a wound that if it's left raw and open, it comes back to you in your present, and it hurts. It hurts. It's like a wound that is not treated, that doesn't heal, that is long lasting, and it just stays in your life, and it keeps on triggering you and coming back to you, causing other scars in your body and stuff like that. So I believe that there is the horrific childhood experience, that the terrible experience, the overwhelming experience that you went through, and then there's just the clinical described childhood trauma, like the PTSD, CPTSD, etc. That, as I said before, I took myself out of the equation. I didn't know that I had childhood trauma, because then there's the horrific experiences like the rape, and then there's the clinical ones, described ones. So where do we put our personal stories? We go through personal stories growing up. Where do we put our own narratives, right? I didn't experience this horrific drama, and then I don't even think I can name my trauma clinically. So then we neglect our experience, our trauma, and just feel like, oh, I was just growing up. We don't pay attention to it. So then it becomes a wound that is just there, that is untreated, right? So to make it a bit clear, let's categorize it so that we can find ourselves and see where we belong in. We're gonna categorize it in like the big T issues, and then the small t issues, a T standing for trauma, right? So the big T issues is the ones that you'll find, like sexual harassment or sexual abuse, like rape, and or physical abuse, maltreatment as a child growing up, and going through, like your parents going through divorces, or even having to witness violence in your home where you are living as a child, and also having to deal with your parents addiction, like say your mother or father is addicted to alcohol and you have to grow up in that kind of an environment, right? Those are like the big T issues. And then there's the small t issues, and those are emotional needs of a child that are not met, like love, getting enough attention, or not being allowed as a child to experience all your emotions, like anger, rage, or just play, going outside in the nature and play and stuff like that. We teach our children, or even we were taught when growing up, that we have to suppress our feelings. You are not allowed to get angry and scream and stuff like that. But those are emotions that were made by God for a reason, and they need to develop so that we can know how to control them. How do we get to know how to control them? If those feelings and those experiences are neglected, it leads to brain development. Like it affects the kids' brain's development, right? Our brain development. And those emotions are the ones that leads to abandonment, like you feel like you have been abandoned, right? And just neglect. And all this trauma, whether it falls under the big T's or the small t, they are all valid, and it all needs to be attended to, because it comes back to us in our current lives to revisit us, right? It's a wound that is not treated, that never healed, that was never supported. It comes back in our relationships. It comes back in, like, in our mental health, that causes anxiety. You get triggered so fast, you have depression and etc. It comes back into our behaviors, how we just get angry and stuff like that. It comes back in our physical health even, right? Now, my childhood trauma, among others, that I will share once the podcast is ready, is abandonment. I never grew up with my dad, and that left a big void in my life. I just felt like I was not loved enough from both of my parents, really. And so I had this desire of wanting to be loved, of needing loved growing up, and until recently it came back into my relationships. And when I talk about relationships, just not relationships with a man, boyfriends or so, but even with my friends, with my extended family, I had this desire of wanting to be accepted, wanting to be seen, wanting to be loved, to be accepted, like accepted in a certain circle or by a certain person, right? To have a feeling of belong, to be seen and to love, right? And then also now recently I feel like I'm letting my kids go through the same trauma that I am going through, because they don't live with their father here, and that guilt has been crushing me daily. What I actively do is talk to my children, right? I let them know that I hear you, I see you, I see your feelings, I understand your feelings. I let them know, in case they don't even know, maybe, or they don't also know how to name their emotions, maybe it's just subconsciously, I actively talk to them and tell them, guys, you are supposed to have a father in this house, right? Even though your father is a call away, a video call away, or I can give you all the love and the care, that doesn't leave the excuse of you not having a father. Like, that is a void, it's a wound that is valid, that you need, right? You need a father, you need a father figure, right? And I hear that and I see that, and all I can do, that is unavoidable for now, all I can do is to show you support, to let you know that that exists. Picture Noshi, right? My little girl Noshi. She will be playing around the house. She gets hurt. She gets a little wound. She will come to me. I will plaster it and all that, and then I'll seal it with a kiss, right? And then boom, the pain vanishes miraculously. Just goes away. Does the wound go away? No. The wound is still there. It's just that I showed her love. I showed her support, and we had that awareness that, okay, there is work that needs to be done here. There is a wound that needs to be taken care of. And that's the same thing with childhood trauma as well, right? It is uninvitable. It will happen in different ways for different people. I was listening to Jay Shetty recently, on his podcast, and he shared that his childhood trauma was that he was laughed too much. He was laughed too much that he felt guilty. He was laughed too much as a child from his parents that he felt guilty, and having that he had this need of trying to reprocreate that love again also towards his parents, that he started over loving, right? Trying to always over love someone or show too much love for these people because he felt guilty that he was just loved too much, right? That continued into his marriage to his wife, and then later obviously his wife will also feel guilty, like, oh my goodness, am I maybe lacking somewhere? Because why is this person loving me so much? Maybe I'm the one who's not doing my job well as a wife. So all those things brought so much relationship problems and so on, right? And then the other way around, my childhood trauma is the fact that I wasn't loved at all. So that's why I'm saying childhood trauma is inevitable. Every one of us gets to experience it, just in different ways, and those ways are all valid, because it does, the moment that it does affect you, it comes back to haunt you, it comes back to trigger the way you live, the way you spend your money over shopping, your anxiety, your depression, your relationships. It causes physical health. Then it does matter, then it is valid, no matter how you feel like this childhood trauma was just small. So moving forward, I just want to put it out there that the aim, or that we become perfect conscious parents, we can try, but we can never become perfect. Only God is perfect, and thanks sweet Jesus that we aim is not to wish that we had different parents or we had a different life. We are made perfect through God, right? And yeah, as I said, it starts with awareness. That's the number one thing that you have to do. And then we move forward with taking active action to forgive those that hurt us, forgive our parents, forgive our family members, and or even forgive ourselves, right? And then also have that self-conscious and know our triggers when they show up, right? So that we can be able to control them. Like for me, for example, who had this problem of wanting to be seen, over like I overdid myself, just wanting to be accepted by someone else, wanting to be loved, right? And so I used to give a lot, right? I just want to give, I want to be that perfect friend and whatnot, or sister or so. And but then now recently, when I have to give someone a gift, I ask myself, what are my intentions, right? I'm sending this gift to Becca, for example. Am I doing it because I want her to love me, because I want her to accept me in her circle, in her life, or am I doing it because I really appreciate her and I love her and I see her for who she is, right? So because now I know those triggers and I know my childhood trauma and I want to be better and I want to live in authenticity, I can show up better. I can show up even as a better friend, a true person, a true human being, right? And that's our goal. That should be our goal, right? So yeah, this week I want to challenge all of you to, if you haven't really already figured it out, go and sit with yourself, right? And ask yourself questions. Get to that awareness. Ask yourself questions like, how was my childhood experience? Yeah, what are the things that hurt me? What are those painful memories that I remember? Do I remember any? What are those beautiful memories that I remember, right? How was my parents? What kind of a house did I grow up in? How does these things affect me right now? How does it affect my money? How do I spend my money, right? Am I do I overshop? Do I overspend? Or do I get angry quickly? Where does this actually come from? Do I complain a lot? Am I just a negative person, right? And then take it back, right? Take time. Take your time. Take your pace. Do it with love as well. So you won't just figure it all out also in one go, right? There will be a lot of learning and unlearning. But then we continue to do the hard work on ourselves, right? And I promise you that most of the time also it's not going to be like a beautiful thing to do. But then it gets ugly before it gets cute, right? So, but then because visiting these childhood traumas or experiences might actually hurt or just reopen those wounds again or whatever at that specific time. But then it is necessary. It's a necessary thing that we have to go through and do so that we can ensure that we live a healthier life at the end of the day. Right, and after figuring it all out, and you see that you actually have an issue that you have just actually discovered, you can speak to your parents about it, right? Or you can speak to someone that you trust. You can go and see a therapist. You take action. You just don't have that awareness and just leave it there. You take active action immediately to work on it. Journal about it, write it down, and you should know it so that whenever it shows up in your life, in your relationships, in your finances or so on, you can control it. You can see it and say, hey, this is not who I'm gonna be anymore. I'm not letting this control me anymore. I'm having control and ownership of my life, and I have the power to change. I have the power to become the better me, right? You have an inner child that needs to be heard, that needs to be seen, right? Before I am my mother's child, before I am a mother to my children, before I am a friend or a sister, I am me. I am me, and me needs attention. Me needs to be heard, right? You need to know yourself and love yourself before you even know the external factors or your environment, right? So we need to do the work. We cannot avoid it. You cannot avoid sitting with yourself. We have to normalize sitting with ourselves, journaling, going through our thought process, and winning over our struggles. All right, so I challenge you to sit with yourself this week. Get to understand yourself, get to know yourself, right? And do some mirror work. I love to just go in the mirror in the morning and tell myself in front of the mirror that, Lucia, I love you. Ever since I started doing that, it's been such a power force for my day. It's like it's better than having coffee. Imagine. All right, so from me to you, wishing you all lots of love, peace in your lives, and yeah, let's crush this week until next Wednesday. Oh, and please do not forget to subscribe, like, and share if you really liked this information. And yeah, please do comment. Let's continue the conversations on the comments below. If you feel comfortable enough to talk about your childhood trauma, we can continue to do that in the comments below. Support each other, hold ups. That's what we do at Empowering Immigrants, and walk the walk. Bye.